This week's Torah portion is a turning point for our Israelite ancestors wandering in the desert. They have witnessed the unimaginable: freedom from Egypt, crossing the sea on dry land, literal manna raining from heaven, water following them on their journey through barren landscapes, and all being led by a pillar of fire and cloud, of God's presence manifest in their midst. But as the 12 spies return from scouting the promised land, the majority say, "It is a land of milk and honey," but the people living in the land are aggressive. "The men we saw were huge. We felt like grasshoppers." 10 of the 12 return from scouting fearful, unready to take the risk to settle the promised land. The Israelites, in response, try to find a leader who will return them to Egypt. As you might recall, 2 of the spies, Caleb and Joshua, say, "We can do it. With God with us, we can do it." They put aside whatever fear they may feel, including the fear of countering the sacred and angry masses, and they speak up and put their faith in God. I've been thinking about this Torah portion and the world right now. Which decisions are based on fear? Which are based on the Minority Report? Is there space to support a small number of actions of a leader who I generally disagree with? Is there space to support a community, even when some actions are wholly out of my comfort zone? Rabbi Jonathan Sacks writes of 2 counter interpretations of the spies' response to scouting the land. The traditional opinion, represented by Maimonides, is that the spies lacked faith. In spite of having lived through miracles, they couldn't leave behind their slavery mindset. The community of Israel needed a generation of growing and learning in order to have a freedom mindset. But Rabbi Sacks raises the counter argument, the counter mindset taught by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that it is not a lack of faith, but in fact too much faith and too much comfort. Those spies, they live with God in their midst. Moving into the land will necessitate concentrating on the mundane, societal needs. It may cause a separation between the people and God. And the fear of this separation is what caused the spies to fear entering the land. Seeing these 2 opposite interpretations made me wonder about the way I interpret the world today. As it has been for so much of the last 2 years, Israel has been very much on my mind. On the one hand, I dislike most of Netanyahu's policies and his coalition goals. I disliked them before October 7th. And I feel they share a significant part of the blame for not preventing October 7th. I also feel that going to war in Gaza was justified, but I have many questions about how the war is being enacted, and the language coming from the coalition partners does not make me more confident that the IDF is taking the precautions and the ethical choices that my Israeli friends tell me is standard, even if unseen by our media. And yet, when I was in Israel last summer, we had the opportunity to meet with a liberal opposition member of Knesset and the only Reform rabbi to serve as a member of Knesset, Gilad Kariv. He echoed the sentiments of much of his more right-wing colleagues and our tour leaders that the real danger is Iran. And everything else we are seeing is just part of Iran's greater plan against Israel. Hearing the same fears and the same rhetoric come from the left and right sides of the political spectrum made me rethink my assumptions. They did not necessarily agree on what to do about the threat, but they were 100% in alignment on the nature of the Iranian threat. So again, last week when missiles started falling, I turned to my Israeli news agencies and podcasts, many of whom are extremely critical of the Netanyahu government. They are all in fear for themselves and their families and what this war means, yet none of them are arguing against it. there is near unanimity amongst Israeli Jews that a preemptive strike on Iran was necessary, and that the methodology has been a tremendous success. Think about what that means. In a world where 2 Jews have 3 opinions, Israel, which has had government protests for the last 3 years and 4 elections in the 3 years before that, is a divided society. There is strong support for dismantling Iranians' nuclear capacity, even as rockets are getting through the Israeli air defense systems. Does this represent the majority spy report, one which is based on an existential fear of Iran, or does this represent the faith and hope filled by the minority report, which is based on the hope that with God on our side, we can overcome enemies which are stronger, larger, and truly far away? Does my opinion of this action take a negative influence because it is being enacted and bringing victory to politicians I disagree with? Or should it permit that even people I dislike can sometimes do the right thing for the right reasons? Today, on a Zoom call with the Israeli ambassador to the United States, one of the rabbis wrote in the chat that he believes the strikes on Iran are simply a way for Netanyahu to coalesce power and obfuscate the humanitarian disaster happening in Gaza. After all, you don't see that story on the top of the newspaper anymore. In this view, the moral minority speaking against the powerful, believing that humanity can and must be better. Or is this the fear-based logic bred by so much lack of trust in the Israeli government? Shalach Lecha is a parsha which changes the course of our people's history. Without it, we would have entered the Promised Land not after 40 years of wandering, but after 2. Without it, we either would not have had a slave mentality, or we would have conquered the land but continued to live without the tools of a freedom mentality. While God's reaction to Torah makes it clear the 10 spies were wrong, and the elevation of Joshua confirms that he was the true believer following God's desired path, we can never know what the outcome of the Israelite conquering prior to being ready would have led to. Just as we can never know the what-ifs of our modern times, we must try to learn from them. I am comfortable knowing that I might be wrong. In supporting Israel in its preemptive strike against Iran, I might be following a fear mindset, causing harm to untold Iranians and Israelis alike. But it is also possible that my conclusion, which goes against my instincts to mistrust Netanyahu, might be based on hope and faith. That this, God willing, short-term pain and destruction will in fact set a table for long-term freedom. Freedom for the people of Iran, freedom for the people of Israel living in the shadows of a dangerous Iranian regime, and even perhaps freedom for the Palestinian people. None of us can know the future. Which spies will you be listening to?